Hi everybody, welcome to week 5. I am back in my super awesome plant scene that I had set up previously for Forest Pack. Before you can see my super awesome terrain. You are so envious. I've added a couple of things to this though. But first, before I go into that, I want to get you guys acquainted with a cool new toy, Debris Maker 2. So your classmate Jerry, he posted this in the forum, and yes, I was planning on getting to it. It is the, as I said, the cool new toy. Check it out. Watch the video. I'll post it again in case you missed it the first time, or because you're all following me on Vimeo now, per instructions. You can also go through my likes, and it's one of my most recent ones as well. So there's this Debris Maker, and this makes lots of cool little stuff for us to scatter around. In the past, we've had to make each of these from scratch, and then we have kind of a cumulative library that we have built up over time. But Debris Maker allows us, and will allow you to get some of what we use at Blur all of the time, much quicker to build up your own little library of toys and or little tricks and whatnot. So, or tricks, this is not really a trick. So, as you can see, I've got my little shitty little dandelion, and I've got some little grass guys. First, though, I want to, before I start to show you Debris Maker, well, let me not get ahead of myself. So you should download it first. If you go to his website, you'll see it is here. And you want to download this Debris Maker MZP, so you will get one of these guys. And then all you do is, if you click and drag it into the scene, it's not coming up in my downloads. Dogging computer. Dogging big time. Dude. Well, fuck that. Click it and hold the MZP, drag it into your screen or up into your toolbar, and a little thing will pop up. It will say, install Debris Maker. You will click yes. It will install it. And then it will immediately open. Now, if you close it, it's going to be gone. But just to make sure everybody knows how to do this, you will then go into your toolbars, or you can make it a quad menu, or however you like to work. I like to work with toolbars. So I will make a new one, and then under your main UI, or you can be under all, Debris Maker 2, you want Launch Toolbar, and you will make a new toolbar. You will name it something clever like Launch Debris Maker or Debris Maker or whatever. And then, yeah, okay, thank you. You'll just click and drag this onto your new toolbar and then drag that up into here. And now, if you click Launch Debris Maker, you have Debris Maker. And it opens, like this. But then once you change to something else, it will give you more properties to mess with. Okay, so that is Debris Maker and installing Debris Maker. If my amazingly thorough instructions on installing and customizing your UI was not adequate, you can always go to their website. Unfortunately, his forum has been completely hacked, and if you want to get better at shooting a basketball, this forum will definitely tell you how to do it. But if you go to the very end, and there's all sorts of fun tidbits that you can learn how to pitch faster. Really kind of a bummer, actually. This shit is so annoying. But he does have, and has tried to put some information in here. Yeah, this one, obviously 418 posts. That's just, come on guys, that sucks. But this guy is super generous for putting this out there, and so you can look on his website for installation instructions, or it's just as simple as, you know, any plugin that you or button that you've made, you will go to your customized user interface and make a new toolbar for it. Okay, if for some reason somebody has a problem with that, let me know in the forum and I will further walk you through it. But for the moment, I'm impatient with my downloads folder and am not going to wait. So once again, because this is an intermediate and advanced course, I'm trusting that you know how to do this. Oh, look at that. It even made a handy dandy debris maker. What the hell do you call this? It's an intermediate to advanced course, and I don't even know what this upper portion is called. Yeah, it made a little guy up here. You can launch Debris Maker. That's handy. So you didn't even need to make the button. I just installed this. We have it now as part of the tree grunt at the office. I haven't played with it. Literally all of like 10 minutes of screwing around with it. So I'll do my my college try with this, but I think it's really awesome, and I think that it can help you guys to get to a point much faster using this tool as opposed to some older methods. So that's why I want to show this as opposed to how I might have done this prior to Debris Maker, because you have Debris Maker now, so let's use it until we all have to pay for it. Okay, so that's real quick Debris Maker, and I'll get more into that. But the next thing is some house cleaning. Okay, so everybody's got their scenes, and you've got your stuff, and hopefully you're working in the Onion. Maybe you're not. If you are, I would start to break your layers into like environment, and then environment forest pack plants, forest pack source, grow effects, because grow effects I consider different than like plant objects, baked plant objects, or plant libraries. Another thing I want to address here real quick, and I don't believe I've really talked about it, you know, plant libraries versus custom plants. Plant libraries are essential. We absolutely use them at Blur. We couldn't get stuff done if every single tree we had to be making them custom. That said, though, I think you guys have all seen the power of being able to make one-off trees and plants, and even with grow effects, making one, like a quote-unquote one-off that you can seed multiple times and turn into an assortment is really potent. If you then take your grow effects trees and you put all of those in your foreground and midground, and then scatter around a library, you know, like iTree, we use those. If you guys aren't familiar with these are great libraries. Render, these Render RU guys. They have great libraries. I would recommend them. I've used them at a number of different studios, and they're probably one of my favorites. But check those out for libraries if and when you need them in production. This is not really a course about how to use libraries, because really, once you get the gist of Forest Pack, using a library is a really simple thing. But these one-off trees, these hero things, plants very specifically groomed for your environment, those are a lot harder to pull off when with a library of things. So, moving along, you should start to be breaking your scene up. And right now I've got this landscape here, and it's this, nifty box, and let's just call this, ground surface. And we have a naming convention at Blur for everything. I don't know. I'm not about pushing naming conventions or folder structures or anything like that. I can certainly show you guys, like, this is exactly how Blur does things, but how Blur does things is very specific to our pipeline, and there's a system and a thought process behind what we do because of the type of work that we do. So it's not necessarily like fitting for everybody, but I do think that having your own and some sort of organizational system is really important. I've worked under, I don't know, like 5 different entirely unique. Not to say that there's not other like subsets of that, but then there's some which are just like completely unique. But we can just name this E ground surface out the gate, right? And I would create a new layer from selection, and I'm going to call this, because this is going to go into my environment subgroup, E ground. It might be that my ground surface, and then I've got like other stuff around here as well. So ground could encompass a couple of different things. The other thing you'll see I've already done, and I'm going to go through these, I've got these forest pack source layers. So I've got leaves, pebbles, twigs. I have an environment sub layer or group, and then I have these forest pack source grow effects, and this is just a grow effects object. So I also need to create a forest pack source, just generally forest pack source objects. So I'm going to go into my onion, and if you're running the new onion, you don't need to do any of this, and that's awesome for you. Forest pack source set dress is what I'll call this. These are like they're the minor components, okay, but they're really important. I also normally have this like useful, that'll be like my forest pack template. That's this layer that is kind of it's always created. So I'm going to grab these guys and put them into here. And then my ground, eGround, goes in my environment tab as well. And say OK. So you'll have your environment, and then I would also create a couple more groups. So this is just general organization, general house cleaning, right? I'd make myself a lighting group. I would make myself a camera group. And these, oftentimes we have like multiple shots in one environment. So putting this, or having a camera layer, you'll have like maybe 10 cameras in one camera layer. So it's important to keep that stuff organized. And also lighting, you might have a dome, but you also might have like kickers and little lights for flagging and whatnot. So it's also important to have a lighting layer as well, or lighting group, to keep your light layers organized. Okay, so I've got my ground. I've got these forest pack plants. So this is forest pack scattering my plants. And then the difference here is this is forest pack plants. So this is an actual forest pack object, and it also should encompass, but does not, because I am disorganized, should encompass my spline as well. And I put it in my forest pack source bushes, and that's not where it goes. This guy should go in my forest pack bushes layer. So at any point, if I go to edit these bushes, the splines that edit these objects are sitting alongside. And then these are my forest pack source objects. Okay, so this is a forest pack object. This is a source grow effects object. You'll see also I have this grow effects collision geo. Now generally, I don't have such awesome terrain as this. As I've shown, I'll go in and I'll decimate things to bring them to lower resolution and scatter on those, things like that. So I might have some lower tessellated geo that I'm going to use as collision objects in forest grow effects, or even forest pack. So those could be collision objects, or you could also call them source geo, something like that. And that would be the object that I scatter upon or grow my grow effects objects on. At the moment this is empty, because for this example I'm just going to put stuff onto my my actual geo. One thing to note though is, and I'll talk about this in a later lesson, XREFing. That's going to be the next one, but in this one, if you XREF this object in, let's say you are working in another scene and you want to XREF this in, you want to be like super diligent and super clean. You XREF this in, then you put a forest pack object onto this surface, and this is an XREFed object. Your shit will crash. You will never open that scene again. It will create a circular reference that when it goes to open the scene will not be undone. So don't do that. Keep a actual instance of your geo in your scene that you can use, and XREF in your high poly stuff. Okay? Really important. Alright, and then this little library of things we can create. What is this? It's just a point. Alright. Let's grab this guy. And these I would put under my forest pack source grow effects. And we could say, create a new from selection. And because this is grow effects, I'm going to name it different. And oftentimes I'll have multiple types of grasses in a scene. There's not just like one grass. As I'm sure you guys are all aware, there's lots of different types of grasses. So I will have a variation of grasses and grass blades and grass types and heights and all that stuff. So I've got these. Then I'm also going to select my dandelion. Another new from selection, rename. Flowers. And again, if you didn't pick it up before, the reason I'm keeping them live at the moment is, and perhaps all the time, is the editability that I have if I keep them live. I can change them, I can edit their vertex color, which will directly have implications on their shader and whatnot. So it's important to me when I'm first starting out in an environment and when I'm just getting going on something that I have this stuff live. Through like the first couple of kind of like passes of looking at something, I like to be able to tweak it at any moment. So let's just organize this guy real quick. And I will throw these guys under forest pack stuff. And let's even rename this guy. I know I called it bushes, but it's good to just double name it sometimes. I know it's like totally redundant, but it helps. Those redundancies, like, especially when you're working late, you're stupid. And so it helps to be able to like refer back to what was I doing? Oh yeah, that's grow effects. Okay, so this stuff, like, I'm not directly using it. It might be useful in the scene, and one of my grow effects objects might be linked up to it and looking at it. So I want to keep it, but it's not really a source object, and it's not a collision object, so this is where like useful comes in handy. So again, I can say new from layer, and we could call this grow effects. I don't know, grow effects objects, or grow effects helpers. It's one of these things that I kind of always name different. Oh, come on. Alright. So now you'll see, like, I'm starting to have this environment, and if you had characters, like, characters would be up here. If I had multiple levels of my environment, let's say I had a building, there's architecture, there's a lake, there's near cliffs, far cliffs, you know, so on and so forth. Each of those would start to have, like, I would give each of those a different layer. Then I would have, in forest pack, I'd have my bushes, and you're going to see I'm going to start to build up some new forest pack layers. and each of those will then have its own separate layer and separate splines to define them. Okay, so now let's get to Debris Maker and what we can do with that. So you've made your hero trees, you've made your other bushes and whatnot, and you're thinking like, yeah, I'm good, I'm ready to scatter all this stuff around, and my scene is basically done. So I would say now you want to start to think of all of the other small, tiny, little things that we can throw into the scene that help to ground it and help to make it look more real and bring up that level of realism of your shot. It's little, like if it's along a roadside or something and there's houses or whatnot, it's grass clippings on the sidewalk or maybe on the road, dead leaves underneath trees, sticks underneath trees, twigs and branches just fallen. If it, like in a more grungy environment, it's styrofoam cups and litter and trash and things like that. It's all these little components that are in your scene and that are often not captured by CG. The things that we don't think of because they are such minor elements, but if you get them and you put them in your scene, it will start to make it look that much better and that much more real. So this is where Debris Maker comes in. And I have set up, I'm going to turn this guy off, and I'm going to turn this guy off. And, ooh, I have a camera. So I'm going to create a new from, I love that, ooh, like that's something exciting. A camera. I don't know. Actually, let's say this is the way, that could be like a shot number. That would be a shot number at Blur. And let's click organize. I hate this. Once you have the good one, it's not that this one's bad, it's actually way better than just normal layers, but I just want to click and drag and I can't do that. Alright, so I'm going to turn everything off and I'm going to turn this on. Okay, so this is my Forest Pack source leaves. And as you can see, this is lots of little leaves. We have, let's see, little birch, oak, elms, maples, or am I swapping the elms and the maples? I always frickin' forget. I'm not a botanist. I'm actually terrible with naming plants. I have to look them up every time. Every time I make one, I'm like, what does that leaf look like? I could make 5 oaks in a row and I would screw it up. But Debris Maker made these for me, and how did it do that? I'm going to create a new, not new from selection because I don't have a selection. I'm going to create a new layer, and as I've shown you, I'm going to set this as my current one, and I'm going to launch Debris Maker by pressing my handy button, or you could come up here and you could say launch Debris Maker. And I'm going to set this to leaves. Alright, and there are lots of options, and as I told you, I haven't really messed with this a whole bunch yet. You're welcome to, and in general, I just want stuff to kind of scatter around. This is going to make me all these different leaf types, so ash, elm, red oak. I don't need to read this to you. And this being 10 ash, 10 elm, 10 red oak. Okay, this is my leaf count of each. So if I say generate, you will see very similar to what I showed you a moment ago. It's thinking. So there you have some leaves, very similar. Let's see, not identical, but very similar to what I had previously created. Okay, so these are my leaves. Now, do they have shaders on them? No. Okay, but still, this is pretty frickin' sweet. They do have UVs, and I know this because I checked, and I don't think it matters, but if you go UV, unwrap UV, and we open it, you'll see each one of these guys has a UV map on it. So you can go and you can go to CG textures and whatever. You could, I've seen some interesting things where people like take a map like this and convert it into kind of multiple colors and stuff like that. You could also take something like this, you could kind of clone it out or scale it up, and you could use this on each of them, and or this on a couple, and I mean, this is really the back side. You want something where it gives you like a front and a back. Normally CG Textures has those. But it's for these like small components, you're not really going to be picking up on like all these tiny little details. It's more about the details of these things being there and their color variations. So don't worry too much like, I didn't get the best freaking shader on the planet. It's all about level of detail, okay? None of this is hero objects. If it does become a hero object, if you want like a couple of hero leaves or something, then go in, obviously, you know, make something sweet. But otherwise, take something like this, take it into Photoshop, clone stamp it out, and make a larger map so that you can apply it to, you know, multiple objects at the exact same time, okay? And then, like I showed you before with the plants, you will take this and put it into a forest color. So now you will have the ability to tweak these colors, and you start with green, but you can get yellows, oranges, all those stuff just with using that one green texture on all of these. Okay? But you've got to set it up this way in order to get that. So that would be the first thing I would do. I would make myself some leaves and just little things to scatter about. And delete this. Oh. And those guys are pretty high res. It's fine. Like Forest Pack will manage that pretty well. And then I also made some little pebbles with this debris maker, and that is gravel. So this is 10 pieces of gravel with an irregularity and a roughness, and you can optimize. So this is the same thing as like putting a Pro Optimize on them. So you could be more aggressive with this Pro Optimize amount, and this would give you lower resolution, you know, pieces of gravel. So these are also really good to scatter around and make like small variations, a couple different scatter components to do that, okay? And then twigs. So I've got these 4 twigs. I actually initially set out to make 5 twigs, and one of them went kind of wonky. Let's see if it'll do it again. As this is a free plugin, like, let's be realistic. If it does something goofy, like, it might do something goofy. It's no big deal. And it's going to think. It hasn't yet crashed my scene. I have no wood to knock on. Oh, and it did do it again. Okay, so that's what it did the last time on one of the twigs. It could be that there's some setting in here. I'm just not messing with it, and I am impatient. So, but either way, like, decent little twig. Throw some stick stuff on it, and, you know, call it pretty good. I would probably, what I've done in the past is made like little Grow Effects twigs as well. I've just set like one distributor, given it some random noise, and then taken some like little sticks off of it. So you could take like this plus some Grow Effects twigs that you make on your own, you know, make one and then seed it 5 times and give it a cylindrical mesh, and you're good. So, and if at any point, like, you know, as I said, these are pretty high res, you probably, let's test this, Pro Optimize these guys. So if you're not familiar with the Pro Optimizer, you should become so. And because these are not game models, and I don't care, Obviously, that's too much. This might do a shitty job because these guys, they're supposed to be welded, but it's not looking like they actually are. It's better. Because remember, these guys are going to be small, so... Fucking Pro Optimize. Sometimes, if you go too far all at once, it does stupid stuff. But then if you, like, see the way I'm, like, stepping it down here? And what was I? I was at 20 before, right? And look, like, it does it, and it does it correct. Like, the stupid thing, you can't go, like, direct to it. You gotta, like, walk it down. You gotta hold its hand. And there you go. See, like, I went to 30 from going, like, down, and it has a hard time. So now I gotta go back up. Oh, and it's gonna crash. Yes. Oh, no, I hit the render to texture, which is even stupider. Yeah. Alright, so I gotta go back up. And bring it back down. So something like this, like, would probably be fine. And you might be able to tweak these settings in your length and segments and whatever and get something that will work, and I bet we can. So let's delete these guys. And then we don't even have to pro-optimize them. So this is the length of it. This is the segments. I don't know, we might have to. Go away. For some reason it doesn't want to delete. There we go. That one did it. It's thinking. Invalid Boolean. Oh no. Okay, so we're no stranger to that. So maybe pro-optimizing it is best. My delete does not want to work now. Alright, so here's some really honestly not that much lower res twigs. So you can pro-optimize each of these guys. And it's not a big deal. Like, having to pro-optimize 5 twigs, and that's really all I would make. I think I've said it before, but, you know, a variation of 3 to 5 is really gonna... It's really gonna do it for you. You don't need much more than that. Okay, and that gives me these twigs that I've got. So I've got 4 twigs, which I'm totally fine with. The last thing I would make, as I said, there's lots of different grasses. So why not have lots of variations? So I'd probably use this to create some grass tufts. I haven't done this yet. I'm curious. Interesting, it's creating a heron fur. Doobie-doo. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Alright. These guys are heavy. So this is something you might want to play with these. Not to say that you can't scatter these. You totally can. I've scattered some crazy dense plants. So you can totally use something like this. In this case, I'd probably go with 3 instances as opposed to 5 because it's just fewer variations of instances that you have to calculate. And this has Nice. This has a couple different types of grasses. Very cool. You guys are so lucky this is around. So let's get rid of that. Fuck you, delete. I don't know what magical hotkey I hit to like screw up my delete key. But my keyboard does not. It's just been like super unhappy lately. I'm lucky that I have a keyboard. Learn from me. Do not fry your motherboard. All right. It's interesting. So that could be useful. So you get the idea. Like this could be. I'm just gonna delete these two. Come on, go away. Take these two. It's weird, my like redraw has gone totally insane. Alright, and we'll say force pack. Source. Grass. And let's call this yard grass. And organize this. Alright. So now that is, let's say these are my set dress elements. I've got this yard grass, these leaves, these pebbles, and twigs. In addition, I have some bushes and flowers and some grow effects grass as well that I can tweak. So I'm going to close that. And you know, you guys should definitely look through this. Look through the, you know, the different options here. It'll make you bricks. Some cool stuff. You know, you can always create one of these, take it back out to ZBrush, and beat the crap out of it. You can create some meteors, pigeons. No shit. I need some pigeons. I just want to see now. I'm curious. Sorry, animation casual flight. That's pretty cool. Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Alright. I would have too much fun with this. There's a reason I haven't opened that. Delete layer. Where's the delete layer and everything on it? Well. Oh, yes. Thank you, Max. Yeah. Alright. So, ignore our pigeon hiatus. Alright. Here's my ground. It's awesome. And if I move it, it will redraw. There are my bushes, and they kind of suck, right? I don't really want these bushes scattered like that, because I want to put some other stuff in here, right? I want some grass. I want, you know, some interesting things happening. I don't want a monoculture of my crappy bush that I built. So we will go to the distribution maps, and I'm going to group these guys, and then I'm going to bring down, or bring up rather, my density, so that I get some like clumps of my dumpy bush, but it's not just like, you know, dumpy bush everywhere. And then these guys as well, I'm going to do the same thing. Maybe I will be wild and crazy and use group 2. Shazam. And these guys we don't need to do as much. Okay, so now I've got, you know, Dumpy Bush A and Dumpy Bush B. So let's save as, because you never know when Max is gonna crash. Like now, for instance. And oops. Alright, and now I'm going to create a new layer, set it current, and go back to E2, create a Force Pro. Object. So now by default it's going to be the surface object, and it's making little planes and it's portraying them with points, which is fine. And maybe I want this to be forest, grass, small, and then like dense, right? So now rename this layer. So let's call this well, I have my force pack plants. What was I doing with my force pack set dress? Man. Alright, and normally I'll put like dense grass and small grass and tall grass. Like all grasses will go into one unless there's some like profound reason that that they need to be moved, and that's cool. Then you can make a new one, you know, and put them in two. Maybe you have like a terrain breakup. I've certainly had that. Like there's like the high terrain and the low terrain, and so I'll have forest pack grass high, forest pack grass low, you know, that sort of thing. So now this is going to be grass, so let's use the yard grass, let's say. And we're going to create some custom objects. It's interesting that it's calling on that cylinder. What are these guys? I think we need to collapse these. That's interesting. Alright, as I said, I have not worked with this, so oh, screw you, Max. And yep. I have the lovely nothing will work bug. Okay, I'm going to close and reopen because this is not going to get any better. It only gets worse from here. Yes, I know my license. Oh, Rich Dirt is going to so lovely try to sell me a license, and I appreciate that. My trial is out. Everybody buy Rich Dirt. It's actually a very cool plugin. We use it a lot. I don't really at home though. The most amazing splash screen. Alright, come on. Alright. So I think that you might want to convert stuff like this down. Oh. Interesting. Oh yeah, I don't use this hair thing that much. I know there is some. It's under tools. Hair to mesh. There we go. Yeah, sorry, I don't use this. I don't use hair and fur every day, so you got to convert it hair to mesh, and then claps that guy. And then what is this? This one's already a mesh, so that's interesting that it makes like one of them a mesh and then the other one not. Oh, and its pivots over there. Lame. You'll want to reset these pivots. So while I'm doing this, I'll go through my like what I would do for this, because this is kind of jacked. It's great, like it makes some cool stuff, but oh, fucking weird. What is this? Maybe it's oh, I see. All right, sorry. It's not doing. All right. You go bye-bye. There we go. Oh, I screwed up. So, if that wasn't clear, when I are all of these hair or all right, when I hit that hair to mesh object again, as I said, I don't use that pretty much ever. It created a copy, so I needed to just delete the hair and mesh object or the hair object, and then the duplicate would be sitting there. So now that collapsed version that I made, its pivot got set to 0, 0, 0. So I will want to affect its pivot and center it to the object. Or not. Where their pivots are is important because that's directly relates to where they scatter to. I want to get that other piece. Oh, why'd this guy do that too? You little fuckers. Dude. What is this? No, it does. The mesh resets to 0. That sucks. So this is somewhat annoying. Still, it's better than having to create it all by yourself. I mean, at this point, you could almost make like I don't know. I don't care too much for that, so I'm gonna get rid of that crap. I don't like it in the first place. Okay, and where they are in the world, like, oh, yes! Yes, okay. I am awesome at crashing software. Yeah, so what I was about to say is where they are in the world, like, doesn't matter. Like, you know, your grass tufts, they can be off in space wherever, as long as their pivots directly relate to their placement as you want them in your scene or on the surface, everything will be right in the world. I.e. their pivots, you want them at the base of where the where the grass blade hits the ground. And sometimes you want to give a little bit of breathing room so that the pivot is slightly above. So they're penetrating the ground a little bit. All right. So we have some meshes, object 1, 2, and 3. Grass 1, A. And actually, let me see. Come on, tree grunt. Rename. Simple renamer. Ooh. Okay, so let's see if I can remember how to use this fucking thing. New grass. Starto. Full rename, add prefix. So this is a renamer that we have at the studio. We have a couple of renamers. This is one of the ones I don't use all that often. We have a more complicated one that's like shop-based, asset-based. So what you could, if you had your object or whatever, you could do a full rename, and you could say, grass underscore, or not backslash, and you could say rename. And it would throw an error. Awesome. Maybe it'll work for you. I think this has to do with my just my install in general and shit not being happy. But this could work for you, and if it does, you can do, you could add, you can append, you can postfix, prefix, find and replace. So you could give this grass, and then you can say, grass A. You can append some numbers to it. It's a pretty handy-dandy little tool, and I'm pinging in the background excessively. Although it did rename them. Well, screw you. Alright. Well. The reason these are grass A, B, and C is that these are the variations, A, B, and C, and then I want each coinciding instance to be 01, 02, 03, 04, so on and so forth. So, let's save as. All right. So I do believe I did create a GrowFX object. And why, yes, I did. So I'm going to delete these guys because they don't exist anymore. Like Cylinder 008 doesn't exist. That's probably why this guy crashed. And you can't delete both of them. You just have to simply give it a new instance. Yeah, I know. So as I was saying, this is probably why it crashed, because I deleted or did something that renamed something that the grow or the forest pack object was referencing, and then it created some sort of circular reference that then shit the bed on me. So it can be temperamental. No. Okay, so this is on the surface, and it's creating it everywhere on the surface, right? I have assigned no splines to anything as of yet. So, as we talked about, especially once you get into these big scenes, and at this point too, you can turn off this source pack the source yard grass, if it is really heavy, you know, just having these heavy instances of geo hanging around is not doing you any favors. So you can come in here, and now, again, as I showed, you can pick a start, pick an end. Alright, and these guys are starting to scatter around. Wow. Sorry. Normally I would hit P, but I have stupidly set up my my two computers, one at work and one at home, differently with unique hotkeys to keep myself on my toes. And then I come in, so this is my small dents. So I'm going to enable transforms, I'm going to enable rotation, so that each one of these has a unique rotation. And then I'm going to enable scale, and for something like this, I want these guys to be way smaller, and I want them to be way denser. I totally went right past what I was looking for. So I'm going to tweak this threshold amount and bring it down lower. So that will get me some of the way there. The other thing that you'll want to do is, in a couple of spots, this max items, I generally just I crank that shit. Because I want it to do what I want it to do, and I will manage the RAM. I don't want it to manage the RAM. If I crash my scene, I save often, so I did it. I don't want it to tell me that, you know, you're going to do something bad. I want to do it. I first want to screw it up before, you know, it does it. Basically, I want to manage my own damn shit. So I don't like that it's got some of these controls, and I understand it's trying to help you not crash your scene, but I'm an adult. I can figure that crap out, and if I crash my stuff, then it's my fault. So alright, so now I've got some little grass blades, and it's not showing 100% of them, right? They are point clouds, and my density is only 20, but I've upped my max items. I don't really up it in the max in the display. I do up it in the render. And then the other place, I'm sorry, I totally glossed over it, is this max density, and I crank that to 100 million. I think that's as far as you can go. Yeah, 100 million. So I've got this guy pretty jacked up. He's jacked. So that's maybe my first grass, right? And this is just a general overall peppering of Kentucky bluegrass or something like that. Then I'll turn this guy on. And this is my GrowFX grass. And first things first, we want to make sure that we turned on in our preferences, convert to mesh. Alright, so now we can create another GrowFX. And you don't have to do it this way. The other thing we could do, and just real quick, let's cover this. So right now I'm showing these kind of monoculture of GrowFX objects. But you don't have to do that. You can also say and I kind of touched on this, alright, so I've got these grass ABCs, and then maybe I have this grass too, and I want to add it to the... Did it do it? I think it did. Yeah. No. Because I didn't do the right order of operations. Custom object, and pick that guy. Ooh. Alright, so right now, this guy's pretty small. Let's say I wanted this to be my taller grass. So this is where this being live is frigging awesome. Because now I can come into here, and I can open up my direction modifier, and I can say I want these guys 3 feet, and this Come on. He still might be too small. Let's just say 5 feet. He's really tall grass. He just does not want to update. Alright, I'll give it to update. We're gonna force you. Here we can set some probabilities for these guys. You could say like this guy is like 20% of the time. And I have scaled it down pretty considerably. Let me see how tall that yard grass is relative. Alright, so we're gonna end up with some clumps here. And really I want these guys to have a higher probability. And I want this guy, this big like lumpo stuff, to have a lower probability. So we'll say like 40 or something like that. And then, as I was showing you, what you can do is come into here. So I've got a distribution map and it's spreading them all over the place, but I can also, my diversity can be random or it can be clusters. So this is going to cluster, like right now you'll see I've got one type coming through the middle here, and then I've got, you know, other types over here. You can kind of see these discoloration and discolored areas. And if I tweak this size and bring it down, say 32 feet, now I've got, you know, more of this one element and then the other elements over there. And this roughness and blurry edge, like obviously this is going to kind of, the blurry edge will introduce and kind of mix at these clusterings, whereas like if there's no blurry edge, it's going to be, you know, completely rigid. And noise also like introduces noise into this, and that gives you kind of that rogue element, because plants don't like grow in just like 100%. This is my area. You'll get like these kind of like trespassers or something like that. So noise helps to add that, and then adding like a, you know, a blurry edge will also give you some nice clustering of plants, but it won't be like super super rigid, which looks like crap. Then if we, let's just render this. I have no idea what this will look like. Better than I have ever expected. It looks like such crap. Okay, so this is like a clumping of my tall grasses, right? And then these are like the little grasses, and I probably like scaled them too much. So let's correct some of that. And then make them at some point. Forest Pack is going to start barking at me that you have crossed the line. And when it does do that, I don't really let that deter me. So, I mean, and this is the funny thing. It's like, all right, so I took one system and I pushed it too far, and I created too high of a density. So I just create another forest pack and plop it like right back in the exact same spot with the same density, and like seed it slightly different, or like mess around with the settings. So it's basically covering and giving me the same density, but or filling in like those other areas. But I don't have to listen to like Forest Pack complain at me. So because it will. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you're a bad monkey and we're not going to build properly. So I kind of hit hit forest pack's limit. And to my knowledge, like, this is one of the areas where it's like my time working with V-Ray Scatter, I don't remember it doing stuff like this. It pretty much left it up to the artist to, like, if you were going to be like stupid, then you could be stupid, and you could throw too much at the wall, and it would trust that you could manage it. Because honestly, like, I bet that if we look at my performance, yeah, like, come on, like, I'm using 7 gig. I have other stuff going on. Like, you can do more, and it should allow me to do more. This is my biggest complaint of this setup. Like, I don't want it managing what I'm doing. So, but my answer, as I said, is to clone this guy or make another variation of it and fill in with other plants, and we'll do that. So let's say, like, all right, that's my initial kind of grass guy, and I like making these clumps because in nature, like, it does do this. You don't get just like everything's perfectly scattered. Like, every time I see that, it's like a red fucking flag to me, and it bugs me so much. So don't do that. But what we can do is, like, you know, introduce a little bit more noise and blur the line between these guys even more. And I'm hovering my mouse like I have the button depressed, and yet I don't. So we're getting some other, like, rogue elements, trace elements in here, which is good. That's what we want. All right. So then the next thing I could say, as I was saying, like, you can keep adding groups into here. The problem with this is that when you need to tweak this, or let's say it's like, oh, that one element, like, isn't working, then you end up with these, like, dependency hierarchies where that stuff sucks. So this is generally about as far as I go. I might say that I might add, like, my dandelions to this. Say, and custom. No. And I might set their probability, like, pretty low. So let's give them a 10. So they'll pop up here and there, but they're not a major player here. In which case, I might make a new one and say, and this might be something where it's like I keep this in grasses because I'm, like, hovering over a turned off layer. I might keep it in grasses because it's kind of a grass, like weeds, grasses, things like that. They're all kind of related. And so I might stay in here. E2 Forest Pro, and don't click on your Forest Pack object. Click on the ground. Alright, so it's got some cards kicking, and then I can now say custom objects, pick this, no, and let's clump these guys into some sort of grouping. Spread 4 actually will give you some, like, interesting grouping if you mess with it quite a bit. I'm just gonna use group 1 for this guy, And there. Again, go down to my transform. I pretty much always enable this stuff. And I might give these guys like a wider scale variation, just so we can see them. So like, you know, there they are. They're popping up. And their grouping is pretty, oh no, pretty big. That's obviously too small. Okay, so now we have like super awesome non-shaded dandelion guys all over the place as well. Which you are all wondering, like, if I wanted to put crappy dandelions, what would I do? Problem solved. I have solved that problem for you. But this is my like basic workflow for doing this stuff. Obviously, for you, you're going to have put shaders on your plants. They will not look like crap like my crappy little bush. You'll put shader on your grass. You'll put shaders on all of these things. And then I would also, like, again, put down another layer of small grass, like, additionally on this, plus leaves. And this is where, like, you know, you start to layer this stuff up. And one thing I want to show you real quick, though, is watch out for, well, actually, let's do it with the leaves because it's the perfect thing to do it with. All right. Based on the topology of your surface, I'm going to turn these guys off. All right, and I'm going to turn back on my leaves. And I'm going to make a forest pack. No, leave me alone. And I realize I didn't name my last one. Dude. And I'm going to come in here and, I don't know, like, I'm just going to select a couple of these guys. I don't ever actually create this many. I mean, this is like more than you would ever need. So don't go in and add like, I've got 50 leaves. I'm going to make all these variations. You don't actually need it. Like, visual variation comes with a lot fewer instances than you would think. Especially if you put a forest pack color on these guys and you scatter them about, you will get there a lot quicker. Alright, so we go to our distribution tab, and obviously the spread amount is too much, or too little. And so, I just want to kind of get up onto one of these. So what you'll see is right now, if I come to my surface panel, so this panel is pretty important. It defines the surface that your stuff is going to sit on, and then it also defines this like normal up. And this is cool and all when you're planting plants and trees, because you have like trees along a hillside and you want them pointing up, and that's kind of what trees do. And maybe you want some variation in that, but for the most part, you want them pointing up. Well, by default, Forest Pack does that. And thank you so much. But if you have leaves, you want them set to 0. And this is going to have them lay based off their normal on the normal of the object, of the closest faced. So it would appear that if your stuff is on a slope, that the leaf is laying on a slope, as opposed to if you set it to 100. Over here, these guys are like always trying to face up, i.e. their pivot is facing up to the Z. It's all pivot dependent. If you rotate your pivot slightly, your stuff would rotate different. But generally leaves, things like that, where I want them laying on the surface, I set them to 0. And then something like this, like I will limit my slope range, and so like now I've got like, you know, clumping in flatter areas as opposed to like leaves artificially sitting on, you know, very steep areas. And again, like this is where Forest Pack is annoying. I can bring this number down and I can start to like crunch it, and whether or not I have that slope on or off, it's just going to bark at me at the exact same time. It actually has nothing to do with like the actual density. It's like an implied density as if it were over the entire surface, over this entire range. Whereas like, okay, like tell me that my density is just insane for the entire object, not like over an area that I'm not actually trying to like calculate, or I don't care about objects that could exist here because I don't want them to exist. I've culled them essentially, so have them not exist. My bitch on Forest Pack. I mean, otherwise this thing is fucking awesome. Like I can't imagine doing what we do. So not to knock on it, I just want you guys to know like the you know, it's not perfect, and none of them are. Why did I put that there? Alright, so now we turn all that stuff back on and we render. And I generally put little leaves and sticks and all that stuff, even in a grassy field. I scatter that shit all over the place, because that stuff falls, and it just gives like your terrain some good variation. So I would recommend doing that. And even in like these like, you know, low-lying areas, you'll start, like, once you have like shaders on this and everything, it'll start to really kind of come together. Okay, so I'm hoping that you're gleaning the relevant information out of this. I've talked about shaders. You should be able to apply shaders to each of these objects. Obviously, a leaf is the same as a leaf on one of your grow effects plants, and you should follow the same you know, lesson to do that. Even your grass blades, I would suggest you use the same methodology as you do for a leaf, for a grass blade. For most of your plant objects, you would use something very similar to this, or to what we've already discussed in the Peter Guthrie tutorial that I sent you. So I'm going to post this, and I'm going to give you the link to not purchasing Rich Dirt. That's fantastic. To Debris Maker as well. So you guys should all check it out, download it, make a trusty button, quad menu, whatever you want, or use, you know, this menu up here, however you like, and start to scatter around your plants and place them in a pleasing manner. I don't just like throw these around. I will start like this, where it's like, okay, I'm looking at a clump or whatever, but once I really get down to it, you know, and I get into the camera, it becomes a little bit more specific. But that's where it's like, that's where I'm saying, like, I'll have multiples. So I will once I get up to close to the camera where I want like some hero guys, I won't let this other like general stuff bleed over. I will cut it. So I'll introduce a new spline that cuts this area, and then bring in another spline to say like I want these variations, but I want them in a very specific way here, and I'll have tons of splines all up on top of each other to kind of call this area. Like, this is where I want this one specific type of grass. This is where I want these dead leaves. This is where I want the pebbles. This is where I want this stuff. So that the camera, from the camera view, you get this like variation, this very art-directed variation, and then it kind of, as you view away from the camera, it becomes implied by these other variations that you allow Forest Pack to do. But it's by using these splines, setting up these splines, as I've shown you in intelligent ways. So I'm going to cover more of this, and we will get into, you know, the shaders and settings on your shaders for this stuff. I've covered what these shaders should start to be, so I'm hoping that you guys are picking that all up. If you're not, let me know, and I can, you know, I will certainly post more videos to help you out, but I'm hoping that we can take this to a whole other level that I would like to get to. So understanding all this stuff is imperative. And with that, that concludes this video.